Welcome to Self-Publishing with ALLi from the Alliance of Independent Authors. This week, Anna Featherstone discusses production and distribution, guiding indie authors through the many ways to create, publish, and distribute their books. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Gatekeeper Press, your partner in independent publishing, empowering authors with expert guidance, 100% rights, 100% royalties, global distribution, and all-inclusive services, from editing to marketing. Gatekeeper Press, where authors are family. And now, here's your host, Anna Featherstone.
Welcome, and thanks for tuning in from your special part of this beautiful planet. I'm Anna Featherston, sharing information and inspiration today from the lands of the Gadigal people, the original storytellers of this land in Sydney, Australia. And we are being joined by two fascinating storytellers who are about to share their approach to creating, producing, and distributing words and ideas in ways you might not even have thought of. There's so much interesting info here. This is going to be a 2-episode podcast. So we're about to welcome V. Hendro and Hayley Gordon. They're the duo behind Storybrewers Roleplaying, award-winning indie creators known for beautifully crafted, emotionally resonant role-playing games in book and card form. Together, they design, write, illustrate, and produce narrative-driven games with book formats as a central piece. So games like Good Society, a Jane Austen role-playing game, and the single-player title My Late Father's Correspondence, which is a read and reply game set in 1832 for all you Regency-era fans and beyond. So welcome, V and Hayley.
Hello, my name is V. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm the creative lead at Storybrewers Roleplaying, and let me introduce you to my wife, Hayley.
Yes, I'm Hayley. I am also a lead game designer, and I take care of most of the writing and also the less fun parts of the business, like the logistics and admin as well.
Fabulous. Like, what a dynamic duo. So we met at South by Southwest Sydney recently, and I wandered into the games pavilion, and on the right-hand side were masses of screens and masses of games with music and video and all sorts of creatures and everything. And then I moved into like the tabletop game section, and I was just wandering through, and I was like, wait, there's a hardcover book and a spiral bound book and packets of cards on this table. I'm like, what are books doing in the gaming pavilion? So tell us your story. Firstly, like, how did you come to be in the role player game space, and what skills and background do you both bring to your indie game and publishing business?
Yeah, that's a fascinating question, in that we don't have any sort of prior background. Like, this is such a new and emerging field. It's not like you can get a degree in tabletop role-playing games, which is what we do. In fact, I used to work as a migration lawyer back in the day, so it was a complete shift from what I was doing in my day job. And how it really began was that Hayley and I started playing these sorts of games for fun, for ourselves, and getting hooked on this sort of medium of interaction and collaborative storytelling. And pretty soon we just wanted to make our own, because a lot of the biggest names out there in our space is very much combat-oriented RPGs about fighting monsters like Dungeons and Dragons. And we just saw the opportunity to tell a different kind of story. And that's how we began. And every other skill that we've developed over the years has been from DIY spirits and learning whenever we were faced with something unfamiliar that we've never tried before. We just tried our best to find the information out there from the internet, and anyone who would talk to us about it, and then try it ourselves. Yeah.
And Hayley, what was your background?
I also have a law degree, but I didn't practice law at any point. I gave it a brief try, and then I noped out. But I've always been somebody who has enjoyed writing. When I first left school, I was like, I'm going to be a playwright. But years passed and that did not happen. And so, yeah, I think it was more than being a skill that I brought in and just something that drew me to the format.
That's so interesting because, like, being a playwright, I mean, really, now you're creating play and giving theatre to people and putting it into their own hands. And I love how you both speak about, like, you know, your independent spirit. Like, that's the whole Alliance of Independent Authors. That's why people listen. It's like you can learn things, and you can innovate, and you can share with community to learn more and take your passions to build into something. So I'm like fascinated by, you know, the whole Dungeons and Dragons type thing, but you two just were like looking for, you know, something a bit more based in history and, you know, different ways of looking at the world. And it was funny because when I was at your stand, one of your fans came up and he was actually a game designer in the other section, you know, with the combat games and all the video stuff. And I was like, and you started telling me how he plays your game in cafes with friends all the time. So they go to cafes, they take your book and everything. And because I was still like confused, I was like, why is there this hardback book? How is this part of a game? And so he explained to me that it's kind of like a game manual. I'm like, well, that makes it complicated. Like, does everyone have to read this book before they can play? And he said, no, it's like you just have the convener reads it, like the main person. They then kind of just get everyone to, like, they explain things. But then during the game, it becomes like a reference tool when people want to go deeper into the characters and deeper into the game. So can you explain a little bit for people like me who maybe back in the day I played, you know, one of those murder card games, but, you know, what are role player games? Explain the card packs that come along with the book and, yeah, just give us an idea.
For sure. Role-playing games in the kind of format that we create them, I think is something that a lot of writers would take to naturally because at its heart, it's sitting down either with some friends or by yourself to tell a story together. And we call it a game, but what the game does is kind of two things. Firstly, it brings like the inspiration for what you're telling the story about. So in the case of our game, which is Jane Austen-esque stories that you're telling, it's going to help you know who your characters are, that you are, and what they want, and some of the, and then the second thing that the game will bring is the way in which you tell the story. And depending on the game, this might involve telling you whether you succeed or fail at certain things, or it might be more like our game where it tells you the kind of format that you're telling the story in particular stages of the game. For example, our game has a letters phase where you switch to writing letters, whether you write them down or you say them out loud. So it's telling you how you're telling the story. So at its core, you're still just telling a story by yourself or with friends, but the game helps you to do that. Um, and exactly as you said in the case of Good Society, the book contains those rules that can tell you the different phases of how you tell the story and how you're going to work together to tell the story. And the cards provide the inspirational material that you use to make your characters. And there's also a bunch of inspirational material in the book as well.
Whoa.
So sorry.
No, I'm like, whoa. My head's like, whoa.
Yeah. So in a lot of ways, it's a scaffold for telling a story. That's what a game is to us.
Okay, so you're not just storytelling though. So you've got to build in, so you've got literary storytelling, and then you have to build in game mechanics as well. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, I'll just wait till Hayley. Okay, yeah, no, for sure. Because I think that the way that we always approach our game making, a lot of the heart of role-playing games, especially for us, is in characters, grounded characters, 3D characters that have complex relationships with each other's and desires and drama with each other. And so we kind of start there in terms of like, who are you going to be playing in the game? And then what kind of interesting stories and themes are we going to generate around that? So in the case of Good Society, Jane Austen role-playing game, I think we wanted to really give people a lot of options in who they're playing. So whether that's the heir or the cornerstone of a family, whether what their desires want, that's why they're on cards, so they can have like over 40 different choices of what you might start out the game trying to do. And then the other half of it is that we wanted it to feel very much like very immersive and very much in pulling from the tropes and themes that you might see in those works in terms of the literary storytelling. So when we talk, we often talk about this thing that we call the heart of the game. It's like the feel and vibe, and we're like crafting that long before we're crafting specific mechanics. So in terms of our game, we wanted it, the heart of the game is to feel like you're authoring a Jane Austen novel together with your friends. And then the mechanics layer on top of that later. So when we were watching, the letter writing phase that Hayley mentioned, that actually came out of us watching. We were some ways into developing this game, and we were looking for inspiration, and we were watching Love and Friendship, the movie. And there's some really funny scenes in that film where they're reading out letters that they'd received, and that moment we were laughing at one of those moments and realized, wow, that's obviously letters are a huge thing, and it would be really fun to have that in our game, both because it'd just be fun and it's thematic, but also from a game design perspective, it's a very interesting thing because only two people will know, sort of fictionally, because you do say in our game, you do say that letter aloud for the whole table to hear and appreciate, but fictionally, the two characters who were the writer and the recipient of that letter are the ones that know the content of that letter. So it does give this sort of texture to the game that not everyone knows that information. Maybe someone's declaring their love for another, right? And then you proceed with the game knowing that, but your character not knowing that. So that's fun. So
Wow.
a
Okay.
lot of our mechanics really pull from stuff we've seen and ways we want to incorporate that kind of literary storytelling in our game.
Yeah. Have you ever been approached by authors to develop games based on their books?
Not yet, but it's possible.
I was just literally thinking, what another great marketing tool for authors to be able to immerse their fans in their books even more. Okay, my head's just like going crazy here thinking about stuff. But okay, can you play the game online, or do you have to be in the same room?
You could be in the same virtual room, just as a Zoom call or something like that is definitely good enough to play. And usually there'll be some sort of play aid that just helps you keep all the information together if you're playing digitally. But it works just as well
as playing in a cafe or at a friend's house. Yes. Okay, cool. Okay, so what's the ideal number of players for a game like Good Society?
Yeah, usually around 3 to 5. 5 if you like a lot of people in chaos. 4 is probably like a good number. And then I personally really love 3 because it is like a tighter story. But 2 people is also a perfectly fine number of players to play, but it's very focused too because you've got 2 characters, and you do play other like supporting characters all the time in Good Society, but it just means the main characters are about 2. Yeah.
Okay, and then I saw like on your table as well, you had another title called My Late Father's Correspondence, which is a single player game, but also you said you can play it with 2 people. So tell us about that game and how and why you created that one.
Yeah, it's a great one to bring up now because it works in a completely different way to Good Society. So Good Society is closer to, I guess, what you might think of a typical role-playing game. My Late Father's Correspondence is a bit different. It is a letter writing game. So the way you go through the game is entirely by writing letters. And it is, like you said, a game that you usually play solo, or there is a 2-player variant as well. And the idea behind that game is that you are playing a character called Agatha, whose father has just passed away in 1832, as you mentioned, and you're dealing with all of the correspondence coming in for himself and also for you. And when you're doing that, you're discovering a lot more about yourself, and some family secrets are coming out along the way as well. Uh, yeah, so it's more of a guided story, but it still focuses on that idea of um like inhabiting a character, in this case, Agatha, the central character, and thinking about what she's feeling and thinking and writing from her perspective. And the impetus behind that one was, well, I definitely do a lot of storytelling in that era. I think it came from Good Society originally, and so it's just a time period I enjoy. But also, I've always been fascinated by stories about grief and change, and the way that you get to know someone differently after they've passed away, when all the parts of their life start coming out. So that was sort of the inspiration behind that game.
That's, yeah. Like, I love how you guys think about this. Okay, so let's talk a bit about the production side of things. So for that book, for My Father's Correspondence, you chose an A5 size spiral bound, 70 pages of detailed handwritten letters and documents. So you even researched historically the ink colors, the stationery, the postmarks. Is that correct?
Yes, that is. We spent a lot of time researching those things. So from my perspective, as somebody who loves history, one of the things I wanted for the game was for it to be as much of an immersive experience as possible, and also for you to be able to learn more about the people who were writing to you by looking at things like the cover of the letters and the stationery that they use. So we use that to both evoke the period, but also to give an individual kind of character and extra details to everyone who is writing to you. And in that game, we removed as much of the instructional text in the portion of the game itself as possible, with the idea that you can basically, just enjoy the experience without like getting snapped out of it by extraneous material. And adding those details is part of creating that. I know V can speak more to the specific.
Yeah, so I mean, some specific things about the spiral bound was because I wanted it to lay flat on your table so that when you're writing your reply to the letters that you see in the book, you can refer to it easily. And so it's really practical user experience decisions like that. And I think that book was all of the handwriting I did myself after researching. Sort of like I had all these handwriting samples from the time, and I was trying to craft my own versions of handwriting from different characters, like Hayley was saying, and I would sit there and think and develop a writing style for each of the characters that I felt reflected their personality a little bit. So it was a lot of fun to make, a lot of interesting kind of artistic decisions to be made. And it's not perfect, but I love it.
It's so cool. It's kind of like you're translating, but through handwriting. Like,
yes, exactly.
Personalities and the era. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. You'd be good at like writing those like hoax letters as well, where you send them in, because you could do it in anyone's handwriting and no one would know it was you. Okay. So did you ever try for a traditional game publisher, or did you go straight to indie?
Straight to indie. It's very difficult to go through the game publisher route. I think in TTRPG, it's just not very big. There's not that many opportunities. And like I said, we'd always had the indie spirit. It was just two of us in our living room at the time, just making games, dreaming the dream.
I love it. And you obviously we'll talk about audience actually in the next podcast episode, because we're breaking this into two because there's so much to talk about. But I can just see that you went down your own rabbit hole, had so much fun, and through that you developed an audience who enjoyed that, rather than trying to be vanilla and try and do what everyone else was doing. You're kind of owning your space. So with role player games, so it combines story, art as well, which you bring B, and mechanics. How do you balance those creative layers when you're doing the design and editing and production? Like, take us behind the scenes, like idea, then prototype, then to the final product.
Yeah. So Haley and I are co-designers of the games that we make, and I think that that's a really big boon because obviously we're married, we live together, we spend every waking minute together, and we're
Yeah.
obsessed with these games and have fun doing it with each other. Like this creative partnership is very fulfilling for both of us. So between us, like the story, art, and mechanics are very easy to discuss and in an interchangeable sort of way. So I think at the very start, when we have an idea for a game, say, oh, okay, we want to make a Featherston role-playing game. What is that? Might that look like? What is the heart of the game? Like I said, and that conversation bridges all three of those things, but in like no specific way. We kind of follow through discussion, like hours and hours of us just discussing back and forth different ideas, researching a bit or looking up interesting things on the internet, and then coming back to each other and kind of hashing out that core experience of the game. And I think that takes quite a while, but we can have a really free and open discussion. Once we sort of have a great idea of, okay, the core of this game, we know what the heart of this game is. It's about realizing that in as well as we can as a game and as a product. So that's when all of that next layer of decisions kind of come in for us. We might have touched upon it in that, but that's when we really start to think about, okay, if this is going to be like a hardcover book. Yeah, of course it will be, because Jane Austen book, it's a very literary genre. We want to make a beautiful book, right? Like that feeds in well with sort of, I mean, we were talking about audience in the next one, but like what the expectations of that game might be. What sort of art do we want for this game? So we might audition, like, think about different styles, but we also will have that discussion of well, we want to make sure that the art's really diverse, because we don't want this to be just vanilla, like you said. We want it to be diverse. We want people to look at the cover and see, hey, we can have lots of different types of people play this. We can have queer stories in this game system, which might not be what you see, but it's something that is important to Hayley and I, and therefore we want to see that. So that's the next layer of discussion, and we production elements. So we'll start commissioning art, talking to artists. At the same time, we're also usually doing playtesting, which is a huge part in our game, where we are getting groups of people together, usually online, because a lot of our players are not in Australia. And so we'll run 4-week long, one session a week for 4 weeks, playtests for our games and things like that through our online Discord or through other channels that we've built up online where we can get playtesters. And
which is a bit like for writers, that's like first readers, like having people read your drafts and taking that feedback.
I'm not familiar with this, but what we often do is we're watching people play, because we're often running it at that point, because no one else knows how to run this game and facilitate this game except for us, because we haven't written the manual yet. So we have to run it. And therefore, though, we get to see everyone's reactions live, and we kind of see the points where they're stuck in their storytelling or that sort of thing. So,
or when they have like a highlight, like when they're laughing or going, oh, like.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes me want to put readers in a room and, watch them read a book.
Yeah.
You're like, how interesting. And like, so it's like taking it up that next level of seeing physical reactions as well.
Exactly. And we could talk about playtesting a lot because we love it so much. And then at the end of the playtesting, we finalize the rules, and that's when the manual gets made, right? Like we got to be reasonably certain of what the rules are to make as good a manual for those rules. So that's like developmental editing, and a lot of technical writing happens at that point. And then Hayley will do the bulk of the writing, and I do the layout. So a lot of the play materials as well. We'll have revisions during playtesting, but it's not until this point where all the rules are locked that I will get all of the final play materials together. And then once all of those pieces come together, that's when we always do a crowdfunding thing for
We
our
can
game.
actually talk about crowdfunding in the next
Yeah.
podcast episode, I think, because
Awesome.
that's where we'll talk more distribution. So with the Jane Austen game, you chose to do that as a hardback. Okay. And you could have done it as a paperback. Why did you go the hardback?
We wanted to evoke the sense of those books that you see around, those older books from the 1800s that have those beautiful hardcover covers to them, and really give people the sense of like, as much as this is a game, it's also a book that you can pick up and read and get that kind of sense.
Yeah, and with these manuals, like you said, they have to be taken to many cafes, so it's nicer to be a tiny bit more hardy.
Yeah. So, what have you learned about selecting printers and materials then for the different types of books you've done, as well as your card decks?
So I think the main thing when you're working with printers, so generally in games manufacturing, if you need components like card decks, there's kind of a small number of printers who create those kind of components. Whereas for books, your choices are unlimited. You can print books in many places. I think for us, a central thing is choosing printers. We usually select them by word of mouth. We like to talk to other people who have printed before, ask them where they've had really good experiences, and then follow where other people have found value and have found good quality. And usually when you work with a printer, one thing I've learned is it's very useful to ask them for samples ahead of time about like the page stock or the cover stock that you're going to use, and most printers will be happy to provide that, so you can get a really good sense of what your book is going to look and feel like once it's been printed.
And okay, so I suppose before the book gets printed, what kind of tools are you using to write, to to do your design, to get it all together?
Yeah, I think it's very easy. It's all the things you would do. A Google Doc for all the writing. I use the Adobe Suite for a lot of my layout, graphic design, just a tablet to draw with, if there's any graphics that I need to make. But I think the heart of it is just in the conversation so that we do with ourselves. And I know for a lot of RPG, even if you're doing it solo, just thinking is so much a big, like the biggest part of idea generation. So daydreaming is
don't tell me you use your brain.
My brain in very specific circumstances only. Must
I love
be
that.
in a daydreaming, open-minded state.
Beautiful. I'm all for daydreaming. And like literally, it makes you more creative in the workday as well. Just daydreaming, and everyone in the office should be given 15 minutes at least a day just to daydream. Just sit there, look blankly, and that's creation. Okay, so in I think it was the letter writing game. I noticed you had 3 QR codes on the inside, and your mission emphasizes doing right by players, by inclusivity and accessibility, and the environment. And I saw that QR code allowed people to download a different font or something. So if they found it hard to read your beautiful handwriting personalities, that they could access it in a different way. Tell us about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That came out of like just me knowing that not everyone can read cursive, and I was not confident that everyone would be able to read all of my cursive. So we definitely wanted to give people a way to look easily online, and also if you're playing it with a screen and you need to copy and paste text, perhaps it'll be easier through having a separate PDF. So we definitely try to think about those things when we're making the game, because a lot of game making is about anticipating people's needs and experiences through your, like, in the journey of your product, not just like the story, but like how are they actually going to pick it up and read it and experience it. So that we also have one of the QR codes leads to a music playlist for background music, so you can kind of get into the vibe. And then I think the last one in that one was actually historical commentary videos that Hayley did to sort of showcase some of the underpinnings, and you could sort of talk to that a bit more, Hayes, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, those were just because people enjoyed them and I love history. I guess I wanted to highlight all of the thought and consideration that had gone into the game and give people an opportunity to have a bit more understanding that they could use to get those little juicy details about the characters from what was written. And then people were like, we would like more of this, actually. And I was like, very well.
Oh my God, I love that. So, like, you're just allowed to just go down your whole historical research rabbit hole and have fun with it.
Yes.
And then that builds out your player reader experience as well.
Yeah, very much like you said before, I think about how we've just done our own like thing and followed our own passions and tried to bring those to life in a way that then invites everyone into those things that we're passionate about. That's our method of connecting with people, and we try to follow through that ethos. From beginning to end of our products, the idea of like going down our own rabbit holes, but then inviting people into them so they can enjoy them as much as we do.
Yeah. And so with those videos, do you host them on YouTube or on a
Yes,
private
they're hosted
link?
on YouTube.
Are they open to everyone or you have to have a certain link?
They are open to everyone. I do say at the beginning of each one, spoilers, beware, just in case someone randomly stumbles across them. But I think the vast majority of people watching them have the game.
Yeah, okay. And so the game's not just in hardback and card form and the spiral. So you also provide PDFs, is that right?
Yes, so whenever you buy one of our games, generally you can also get a PDF version of the game. That comes out of like the fact that a lot of role-playing games are, like you said, reference materials eventually when you're playing. So you want to look up a rule really quickly or refer to some bit of it. It makes it easier to find when it's a digital product, like you can control F, whatever it is that you're looking for. And also, I think that there are some of the play materials, like the character sheets, that you print off before you play. So those are, we always supply those either on our website. They're always like up there as play material. So if you lose them, you can print them. So it's just part of the ecosystem of what a tabletop role-playing game is expected to have.
Yeah. And do you get concerned that someone might just copy them and pass them on, or?
There is nothing we can do about that. If they choose to do that, that's their decision. And I know for a fact that that has happened on occasion. I'm fairly sure that for a period of time, one of our games was just uploaded on the internet, and anyone who wanted to find it, if they really wanted to try to get it for free, they could do that. But our ethos is like people going to do what they're going to do. And most people who value our games will then like actually come and pay for a copy. And so we're just gonna let it be. I think that's an inevitability.
Yeah. And I think that's like for a lot of authors, like when our books are uploaded to free pirate sites, it's in the end, those people aren't going to be our long-term customers. Anyone downloading free stuff isn't really where you want to spend time
That's
with
very true.
anyway. Yeah. And then your people become so loyal. Of course, they want to pay for your games and your books and support you back. Wow. Okay. We have so much more to talk about. Actually, I can see in the background, no one can see this, but there's cats jumping around behind you too.
Yeah.
They look very excited.
Yeah, we do a lot of we foster rescue cats.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. And you obviously, are there cats in Regency England? Are they involved in the games?
I'm pretty sure there is some art of cats and dogs that appear in that game that I requested for my own satisfaction.
Oh my goodness. And do you think you'll develop some more in the literary space, in the literary game space, or you're also doing other areas too? Like you have a sport game?
Yeah, I think our genres tend to be like dramatic stories of many different kinds. So like we have a sports drama game, and that's as much like the dramatic things that are happening to the characters and then how they take that into their sport, as well as like cozier games. Like we've got one that's like more of a slice of life experience between a mundane human and their supernatural loved one, whether that's a vampire or a werewolf or whatever it is. So we kind of stick to things that we personally like, and that can span a few different kind of genres. We don't really lock ourselves in, but obviously we have the interests that we have. So
you do.
I'm sure later it will crop back up.
It'd be fun to like check in a few years to see what other interests, like like what other things you've brought into your lives. That it's so fun, isn't it? Though, isn't that what's great about being a creator?
100%.
Like it allows you to just get more into the things you love anyway, and that curiosity brings out so much fun and depth. Oh my goodness. Well, we have so much more to talk about when it comes to audience and distribution. So you're definitely up for another episode. Awesome. So in the meantime, though, where can people find out more about you and Storybrewers?
Yeah, absolutely. If you're interested at all in any of the weird gaming thing we've talked about, like I highly recommend it. So many, I think, creatives, like a lot of video game developers, a lot of writers, a lot of creatives, I think can learn a lot from role playing, because it's a medium that's all about expressing your creative self. So we are on the internet as we are on the internet as storybrewersroleplaying.com. And we've also got, I think, Blue Sky and Facebook, if they're places you are. But mainly, I would say go to our website, sign up for our newsletter. We don't spam, but we will have every 2 months like a little newsletter that goes out that has a bunch of things that we're working on, some of the stuff that our community has made that you might want to have a look at. And it's a great introduction to what we do.
Yeah, and we'll definitely put those links in the show notes as well. But that's great. Thank you so much. We will be back with you in the next episode. But to you listeners out there, thank you too for being a part of the ALLi podcast family. I'm Anna Featherston, and until next time, I hope you experience many wonderful bursts of creativity, writing productivity, generosity, and joy in your life, and maybe some role-playing games. Catch you next time.
You've been listening to Self-Publishing with ALLi with Anna Featherstone. This podcast is proudly sponsored by Gatekeeper Press, your partner in independent publishing, empowering authors with expert guidance, 100% rights, 100% royalties, global distribution, and all-inclusive services, from editing to marketing. Gatekeeper Press, where authors are family. And if you haven't already, we invite you to join our organization and become a self-publishing ally. You can do that at allianceindependentauthors.org.